The vanishing the last time Vikram Malhotra saw Nisha Sharma, they were sitting on the wrought iron bench beneath the massive banyan tree at Shivaji University. The evening air was thick with jasmine and promises as they talked about their graduation. Ceremony scheduled for the following week. "I've already told my parents we're coming to Pune for Diwali," Vikram said, his fingers intertwined with hers. "My mother's been asking about your favorite sweets for months." Nisha smiled, but there was something distant in her eyes that Vikram couldn't quite place. She tucked a strand of her long black hair behind her ear, the small diamond studs he'd given her for their 3rd anniversary catching the fading sunlight. "I'd like that," she said softly. Dot. She squeezed his hand a little tighter than usual. "Vikram, do you ever think about how quickly life can change? How everything you've planned can just ... disappear?" He laughed, oblivious to the weight behind her words. "That's why we make plans together, no? So even when things change, we face them as one." She leaned her head against his shoulder and closed her eyes. "Tell me again about the house you want to build someday." So he did, describing the courtyard with tulsi plants, the library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and the kitchen where her grandmother's recipes would fill their home with spices and warmth. As he spoke, he felt wetness on his shoulder and realized she was crying. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, tilting her face up to his. "Nothing," she said, wiping her tears away quickly. "I'm just happy. Promise me you'll remember this moment." "Could I forget?" he replied, kissing her forehead. "We have a lifetime of moments ahead of us." 3 days later, Nisha vanished from his life. Her phone number was disconnected. Her social media accounts deleted. When he rushed to her hostel room, he found it cleaned out, with only a sympathetic roommate who told him Nisha had left campus in a hurry, saying nothing except that she wouldn't be returning for graduation. At her family's home in Calcutta, her father met him at the door with cold, distant eyes. "Nisha doesn't wish to see you anymore," he said firmly. "She's made her decision and asks that you respect it by not pursuing her further." "But why?" Vikram pleaded, the world tilting beneath his feet. "At least let me talk to her, just for a minute." "She's not here," her father replied, his expression revealing nothing. "And this isn't a discussion. Goodbye, Vikram." For weeks, Vikram existed in a fog of confusion and heartbreak. He called mutual friends, contacted distant relatives, even hired a private investigator who found nothing. It was as if Nisha had deliberately erased every connection between them. The only clue came from her childhood friend Priya, who reluctantly admitted that Nisha had called her once, saying only, "Tell Vikram to forget me. It's better this way." Graduation came and went. Vikram received his engineering degree with mechanical movements, seeing only the empty seat where Nisha should have been. Their friends awkwardly avoided mentioning her name around him, and gradually, the questions he couldn't answer became too heavy to carry in conversation. Eventually, the whispers reached him that perhaps Nisha had met someone else during her internship in Mumbai, that she'd chosen a different path, that she'd never really been serious about their 4-year relationship. Vikram didn't believe it. Couldn't believe it until the day a package arrived with his grandmother's antique silver anklets that he'd given Nisha as a promise of their future together. There was no note, no explanation. Just the final punctuation mark on whatever they had been. As autumn turned to winter, Vikram accepted a job offer in Bangalore, far from the campus and the memories that haunted him. In the tech company's relentless pace and the city's anonymous crowds, he hoped to rebuild what remained of his heart. But each night, before sleep claimed him, the same questions echoed in his mind. Why? What had he missed? What had changed in those final days together, and somewhere 2,000 kilometers away in a small apartment in Dehradun? Nisha Sharma sat alone by her window, watching the distant lights of the city blur through her tears as she sealed another letter she would never send. The unexpected encountered Nisha's apartment in a quiet Whitefield. Neighborhood was small but meticulously organized: a single bedroom, compact kitchen, and a living room dominated by bookshelves. Vikram stood in the doorway, absorbing the details of her life that had continued without him. Medical journals stacked on the coffee table, a wheelchair folded neatly in the corner, framed photographs of her parents but none of him. "The letters are in her bedroom," Mrs. Sharma said, leading him down a short hallway. The bedroom was bathed in afternoon light, filtering through sheer curtains. A hospital bed had replaced what would have been a conventional one, a stark reminder of Nisha's condition. Beside it stood a desk with a laptop and a row of orange prescription bottles. Mrs. Sharma opened the bottom drawer of a wooden chest and removed a large sandalwood box. "I'll make some chai," she said, placing the box on the bed and leaving Vikram alone with 7 years of unspoken words. He sat on the edge of the bed, running his fingers over the intricate carvings on the box. It was the same pattern as the jewelry box he had given Nisha for her 22nd birthday. Inside, dozens of envelopes were arranged chronologically, each addressed simply, Vikram. With trembling hands, he opened the first letter, dated 1 week after she had disappeared. "My dearest Vikram, by now you must hate me, and I cannot blame you. What kind of person vanishes without explanation, without goodbye? Coward, perhaps. Or someone who loves you too much to watch the light fade from your eyes day by day as you tie yourself to a future that will only bring pain. 3 days before I left, I received news that has changed everything. Multiple sclerosis, 2 words, that have rewritten my future. The doctor spoke of progression, of mobility aids, of treatments that might slow but cannot stop what's coming. All I could think about was you, describing our home, our children, our growing old together. I sat in that sterile office and realized I had 2 choices. Tell you and watch you sacrifice your dreams out of loyalty and love, or disappear and give you the chance at the future you deserve. I chose the latter, though it has broken me in ways I cannot express. I am not writing to ask for forgiveness or understanding. I am writing because these words must go somewhere, or they will consume me from within. Live your life, my love. Build your houses, travel the world, fall in love again. Know that somewhere I am thinking of you and finding peace in imagining your happiness, forever yours." Nisha tears blurred Vikram's vision as he reached for the next letter, dated 1 month. "Later, Vikram, I moved to Dehradun today. My parents want me closer to a AIMS for treatment. Father found me a job teaching remotely for an online university. I have good days and bad days. On good days, I almost convinced myself I made a mistake in leaving. On bad days, when the fatigue is so overwhelming, I cannot lift my head from the pillow. I know I made the right choice. I saw a man with your walk today, that confident stride, shoulders back, as if the world couldn't possibly deny you anything. For a moment, my heart stopped. It wasn't you, of course, but for those few seconds, I was back on campus, waiting for you outside the engineering building, counting the moments until you appeared. I wonder if you still take your coffee with 2 sugars, no milk. If you still fall asleep with books on your chest, if you still dream of that house with the Tulsi courtyard. I'm trying to let you go. I promise I am trying. Yours." Nisha letter after letter revealed the progression of her disease alongside the unchanging nature of her feelings. She wrote of new treatments that gave temporary hope, relapses that left her bedridden for weeks, her father's death and her mother's unwavering support, and through it all, she wrote of Vikram wondering about his life, celebrating his achievements from afar. She had created a separate email account just to follow company announcements from Zenith, imagining the parallel life they might have had. A letter from 2 years ago caught his attention. "My dearest Vikram, I saw your name in the Economic Times, today's youngest team lead in Zenith's history. I cut out the article and keep it by my bed. Pride is too small a word for what I feel. The new medication has stabilized my condition somewhat. The progression has slowed, though the damage already done remains. I use a wheelchair most days now, though I can still manage short distances. With a walker, sometimes I dream we meet by accident. In these dreams, you are always successful, always smiling, always with someone who makes you happy. In these dreams, I am always standing, always healthy, always able to walk away again before you recognize me. Mother says I should contact you, that I've made assumptions about what you would want without giving you a choice. Perhaps she's right, but 7 years have passed. Vikram must have built a new life by now. What right do I have to disrupt it? Still, I find myself searching for your name online more often now. I listen to the songs we used to love. I read the books you recommended that I was too busy to read then. I keep writing these letters that I'll never send. Yours always, Alnishad. Most recent letter was dated just 1 week ago. Vikram, I'm moving to Bangalore next month. My neurologist has recommended a specialist there, Dr. Ranganathan, at Manipal Hospital. Mother will come with me, at least initially. The thought of being in the same city as you fills me with equal parts terror and desperate hope. Bangalore has millions of people. The chances of our paths crossing are infinitesimal, yet my heart races at the possibility. Would you recognize me now? My hair is shorter. There are lines around my eyes that weren't there before. My body has changed in ways that remind me daily of what I'm fighting. Would I recognize you? In my mind, you are. Forever 23, full of dreams and righteous indignation at the world's injustices. The man whose name appears in business journals must be a stranger to me now. I've drafted an email to you 1,000 times. I've rehearsed what I would say if we ever met again. But the words always feel inadequate, the explanation too little too late, so I remain silent. Adding another letter to this box of undelivered truths. Always. Nisha Vikram sat motionless, surrounded by the scattered letters, physical manifestations of 7 years of loss. Of parallel lives that should have intersected. Outside, the rain had stopped, and golden evening light streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the still air. Mrs. Sharma appeared in the doorway with a tray of chai. She never stopped loving you, she said quietly. Not for a single day. Why didn't you tell me? Vikram asked, his voice hoarse from unshed tears. All these years I wanted to, she admitted, setting the tray down, especially after my husband passed. But Nisha was adamant. She made us promise. Vikram carefully gathered the letters, returning them to the box. I need to see her. Back at the hospital, the evening shift was beginning. Different nurses, different doctors, but the same antiseptic smell and muted fluorescent lighting. Room 512 was quieter now. The critical moment had passed. Onisha remained unconscious, her breathing steady beneath the oxygen mask. Mrs. Sharma touched Vikram's arm. I'll get some dinner from the cafeteria. Take your time. Blown with. Nisha Vikram approached the bed cautiously, as if she might vanish again if he moved too quickly. Her face was thinner, paler than he remembered, with a jagged cut along her hairline from the accident. But it was undeniably Hertha, same graceful arch of eyebrows, the same small mole near her left ear. He sat in the chair beside the bed and gently took her hand. Felt smaller, more fragile than he remembered, but the connection that surged through him at the touch was unchanged. Should have told me, he whispered, stroking the back of her hand with his thumb. You should have. Given me the choice. Nurse entered to check vital signs, working around Vikram with practiced efficiency. Her numbers are improving, she noted. The neurologist will be by in the morning. Are you family? The question hung in the air. What was he to Nisha now? Ex-boyfriend? Lost love? Stranger? Yes, he said finally. I'm family. When the nurse left, Vikram leaned closer to Nisha, studying the changes 7 years had wrought. Fine lines at the corners of her eyes, scar on her chin he didn't recognize. Her hair, once falling to her waist, now barely reached her shoulders. I would have stayed, he told her softly. I would have fought alongside you. Every step, every setback, every victory, we should have faced them together. He didn't know if she could hear him, if his words penetrated the veil of unconsciousness. But he continued speaking, telling her about his life in the years since she left, about the emptiness that no success could fill, about the way he still turned whenever he heard someone call her name. As night fell, Mrs. Sharma returned with sandwiches and coffee. You should get some rest, she suggested. The doctor says she likely won't wake until morning. Vikram shook his head. I've lost 7 years? I'm not losing another minute. Empty spaces. 5 years passed like a slow-moving train through Vikram's life. Bangalore's tech landscape transformed him from a heartbroken graduate to a successful software architect at Zenith Innovations. His apartment in Koramangala boasted sleek minimalist furniture and cutting-edge gadgets, but lacked the personal touches that would make it truly feel like home. You need plants, Vikram. Living things, his colleague Deepa often told him when she visited. "This place feels like a hotel room you're just passing through." Perhaps that was exactly what he wanted. A life without permanence, without the risk of attachment. His parents in Pune had long given up on their subtle attempts to introduce him to suitable matches. The few relationships he attempted ended. The same way with women telling him his heart seemed perpetually elsewhere. On Friday evenings, when his team gathered at Toit Brew Pub, Vikram would join them for exactly 2 beers before making his excuses. He'd walk home alone through the crowded streets, passing couples with intertwined fingers that made his chest ache with a familiar hollowness. His promotion to team lead came with a handsome salary increase in a corner office overlooking the city. His colleagues celebrated with champagne and cake, but Vikram found himself stepping away to the balcony, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Nisha's old number that he still couldn't delete. "Still thinking about her, aren't you?" Aditya, his roommate from university days and now a colleague at Zenith, leaned against the railing beside him. Vikram pocketed his phone. "It's been 5 years. And yet you still have her number memorized," Aditya noted. "Have you ever tried searching for her online again? What's the point?" Vikram shrugged, though they both knew he checked periodically. Nisha had vanished from the digital world as thoroughly as she had from his life. No LinkedIn profile, no Instagram posts, no digital footprints to follow. "Maybe it's time you let yourself live again," Aditya suggested, not for the first time. "The new UX designer, Rodika, she's been asking about you." Vikram smiled politely, but said nothing. How could he explain that moving on wasn't about finding someone new? It was about understanding why someone who had looked into his eyes and promised forever had disappeared without explanation, without that understanding. He feared he would always be broken in some essential way. The 7th anniversary of Nisha's disappearance arrived on a rainy Tuesday. Vikram took the day off work as he always did, a personal ritual he never explained to anyone. He was sitting at his window, watching the monsoon transform Bangalore into rivulets and reflections, when his phone rang with Aditya's name. "I need a favor, Vic. It's important." Aditya's voice had an urgency Vikram rarely heard from his usually relaxed friend. "What's wrong? My niece, Tanvi, she's been in an accident. She needs a transfusion, but she has that rare blood type, remember? B negative. Like yours." Vikram was already reaching for his keys. "Which hospital?" "Manipal, in Whitefield." "I'll text you the details." "Thank you, Yar. The family is panicking." An hour later, Vikram navigated through the hospital's sterile corridors, following a nurse's directions to the hematology department. His mind was on Aditya's 7-year-old niece, whom he'd met at company picnics, a bright-eyed girl with infectious laughter. "Fill this form, sir," the receptionist instructed, sliding paperwork across the counter. "Then proceed to room 37 for the donation." As Vikram completed the forms, a frantic voice at the nurse's station caught his attention. "Please, there must be some donor available by now. Her condition is deteriorating." Vikram froze, his pen hovering above the paper. That voice. After 7 years, he would recognize it anywhere. He turned slowly, almost afraid of what he might see. An older woman with streaks of gray in her once black hair stood at the counter. Her sari draped hastily around her shoulders, her hands clutching the edge of the desk with white knuckles. Mrs. Sharma, Nisha's mother. Before he could process this, a doctor emerged from the hallway and approached her. "Mrs. Sharma, we've located a potential donor match in the system. They're preparing for the transfusion now." "Thank God," she whispered, her shoulders sagging with relief. "Can I see her? Briefly? She's being prepped for another procedure." Stood rooted to the spot as they walked past him, toward the intensive care unit, neither noticing him in their distress. His heart pounded so loudly he was certain everyone could hear it. The form in his hand trembled. "Sir, are you all right?" the receptionist asked, noticing his sudden pallor. The patient, he managed to ask, his voice barely audible. "Who needs the B negative blood?" The receptionist hesitated, then glanced at her screen. "I can't disclose patient information, sir, but if you're here for the Zenith corporate donation drive, you've been matched with a patient in room 512. Dr. Khanna will meet you in room 307. Vikram nodded mechanically, his mind racing. It couldn't be. After 7 years of silence, on this exact anniversary it was too impossible a coincidence. He walked to the donation room in a daze, completed the procedure with automatic responses to the technician's questions. The moment the needle was removed from his arm, he murmured something about needing air and stepped into the hallway. Room 512. 5th floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened, Vikram moved as if in a dream toward the room number that might contain answers to 7 years of questions. Outside the door, he paused. Through the small window, he could see a hospital bed surrounded by machines, their screens blinking with vital signs. Still figure lay beneath white sheets, face obscured by an oxygen mask. And beside the bed, clutching the patient's hand, sat Mrs. Sharma, her lips moving in silent prayer. Vikram's legs nearly gave way. He steadied himself against the wall, trying to breathe through the tightness in his chest. After all this time, all the unanswered questions, all the nights spent, wondering was Nisha lying in that hospital bed? And if so, why now? Why here? A nurse emerged from the room, startling him. "Are you family?" she asked, noting his distress. Noting began, but couldn't find the words to explain who he was or why he was there. The nurse's expression softened. "Are you the donor?" Dr. Khanna mentioned someone from Zenith was helping. He nodded, grateful for the assumption. "She's stabilizing now, thanks to you," the nurse said kindly. "Family only at the moment, but you can check back tomorrow." As the nurse continued down the hallway, the door to room 512 opened again. Mrs. Sharma stepped out, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. She looked up directly at Vikramand. The recognition that flashed across her face was followed immediately by shock. "Vikram," she whispered, as though seeing a ghost. "Mrs. Sharma," he acknowledged, his voice steadier than he felt. Is that Nisha?" She stared at him for a long moment, tears welling in her eyes. Then, with a glance back at the room, she took his arm and led him to a quiet corner of the waiting area. "How did you find us?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I didn't. I came to donate blood for my friend's niece. I had no idea." He took a deep breath. "Mrs. Sharma, please, is Nisha in there? What happened to her? Why did she leave?" The older woman's composure crumbled. 7 years of guarded secrets seemed to collapse within her as she covered her face with her hands and began to weep. "I begged her to tell you," she said through her tears. "All these years, I told her it wasn't right to keep you in the dark. But she was so stubborn, so determined to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Vikram demanded, his patience finally breaking. "Do you have any idea what it did to me when she disappeared? When your husband told me to forget her? 7 years, Mrs. Sharma. 7 years without knowing if she was even alive." Mrs. Sharma looked up at him, her expression filled with guilt and a profound sadness. "My husband died 3 years ago, Vikram. He carried that guilt to his grave." "What? Guilt? What are you talking about?" She took a deep, shuddering breath. "Nisha has primary progressive multiple sclerosis. She was diagnosed the week before she left you." The words hit Vikram like physical blows, sank into a nearby chair, trying to process what he was hearing. "She didn't want to burden you," Mrs. Sharma continued quietly. "She knew your dreams, your plans. She couldn't bear the thought of watching you sacrifice everything to care for her as her condition worsened. So she made the decision to leave, before your lives became any more entangled." "That wasn't her decision to make," Vikram said, anger and grief warring in his voice. "We were partners. We should have faced it together." "I know," she acknowledged. "I told her the same. But Nisha, she loves you too much to watch you suffer alongside her." Vikram stood abruptly. "I need to see her." Mrs. Sharma hesitated, then nodded. "She was in a car accident 3 days ago. Internal bleeding, head trauma. They say her voice caught. They say she might not wake up." As they approached the door to room 512, Mrs. Sharma placed a gentle hand on Vikram's arm.
"There's something else you should know. In her apartment, there's a box full of letters to you. It's one for every month since she left."
"She never sent them." but she never stopped writing to you either. Vikram closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the revelation. All these years of silence, and now this flood of truth threatened to drown him. I have a key to her flat, Mrs. Sharma said. Softly, the doctors say she'll be unconscious for hours yet after the procedure. Perhaps you should read what she couldn't bring herself to send. Whispers of the past, the moment stretched between them like a thread of light, fragile, luminous, connecting past to present. Vikram's hand tightened around hers as he struggled to find words adequate for this impossible reunion. Managed finally, his voice thick with emotion. I'm here. I'm real. Nisha's eyes widened, darting around the hospital room as reality reasserted itself, the monitors beeping steadily, the IV line in her arm, the bandage on her forehead. The accident, she murmured, wincing slightly as she tried to shift position. I remember headlights, then nothing. How her gaze fell on the sandalwood box beside the bed, and comprehension dawned in her eyes. My letters? You found them. Before Vikram could respond, the door opened and a nurse hurried in, followed shortly by the on-call physician. The next hour dissolved into medical assessments, questions about pain levels, neurological tests. Through it all, Vikram stood at the edge of the room, unwilling to leave, yet unable to reclaim the intimacy of that first moment of recognition. When the medical staff finally departed with promises to return soon, Mrs. Sharma had arrived, alerted by Vikram's text. Her tearful reunion with her conscious daughter filled the room with whispered endearments in Bengali, gentle motherly fussing, and the relieved laughter that follows great fear. It was only when Mrs. Sharma stepped out to speak with the doctor that Vikram and Nisha found themselves alone again, the weight of 7 years and dozens of unread letters between them. How did you find me? Nisha asked, her voice stronger now but still bearing the rasp of disuse. Vikram moved closer to the bed, claiming the chair he had occupied for the past 24 hours. I came to donate blood for my colleague's niece. Pure coincidence. Fate, if you believe in such things. I saw your mother in the hallway. She told you everything, Nisha said. Not a question but a statement. Her fingers plucked nervously at the hospital blanket. She never agreed with my decision. Neither do I, Vikram said quietly. Nisha closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. When she opened them again, they shimmered with unshed tears. You read the letters? Not all of them? There wasn't time, but enough to understand why. You left enough to know you were wrong. A tear escaped, trailing down her cheek. Was I? Look at me, Vikram. Just really look at what these 7 years have done. This isn't the future you signed up for. No, he agreed, leaning forward to gently wipe away her tear with his thumb. The future I signed up for had you in it. Everything else was negotiable. The simple statement hung in the air between them, its truth so evident it seemed to vibrate. In the sterile hospital air, this is not a minor inconvenience, Nisha said after a moment, her voice steadier. It's progressive, unpredictable. The good days become fewer, the bad days worse. I already need a wheelchair most of the time. There may be feeding tubes in my future, catheters, round-the-clock care. I know what MS is, Vikram interrupted. Gently, I've spent the night reading medical journals on your bedside table. The dance began in silence. 2 Zilani interceptors, sleek as hunting birds, circled each other in the vast emptiness between stars. Their movements were precise, calculated, following patterns that had been refined over centuries of warrior tradition. But something was different about the smaller ship. Its trajectory held subtle variations. Its micro-corrections that suggested improvisation rather than programmed response. Aboard the Wandering Echo, Joran watched the tactical display with growing tension. The 2 ships were perfectly matched in terms of weaponry and speed, but he knew Kestra was operating at a severe disadvantage. Her opponent, Commander Vextar, was uninjured and flying with a full Zilani neural interface. Kestra had to rely on mechanical prosthetics and adaptive controls. First blood to the challenger. Vextar's voice crackled over the cum, his tone carrying the formal cadence of ancient ritual. Honor demands precision. Death demands certainty. Kestra's response came not in words, but in action. Her interceptor. suddenly broke from the circling pattern, diving beneath Vextar's ship in a maneuver that violated every principle of Zilani combat doctrine. Plasma fire erupted from her weapons, not aimed at critical systems as tradition demanded, but scattered across her opponent's hull in what appeared to be random targeting. Desperation, Vextar sneered. Gotten even the basics of honorable combat? But Joran understood what Kestra was doing. Scattered shots weren't random. They were creating weak points in the enemy ship's bioarmor, stress fractures that would compound under pressure. It was a human tactic, focused on cumulative damage rather than single decisive strikes. The two ships spun around each other in increasingly complex patterns. Vextar fought with textbook precision, his attacks aimed at specific system vulnerabilities. According to Zilani tactical doctrine, Kestra adapted constantly, using her ship's damaged systems as camouflage, making her movements unpredictable by incorporating the limitations of her mechanical legs into her flight patterns. "You fight like a scavenger," Vextar said, his calm beginning to crack as his perfect shots failed to connect.
Where's your warrior's pride?"
"I discarded it," Kestra replied, her voice steady over the cum. "Along with the delusion that honor lies in following predictable patterns." Her ship suddenly reversed thrust, a maneuver that should have been impossible for a Zilani pilot. Their bio-integrated systems couldn't compensate for such extreme directional changes. But Kestra's mechanical legs absorbed the G-forces that would have crushed organic limbs, and her interceptor spun end over end, bringing its weapons to bear on Vextar's undefended rear arc. The plasma blast took out his primary engine, sending his ship tumbling through space. Emergency systems kicked in, stabilizing his flight, but the damage was severe. "Impossible," he snarled. "You are Keshtar, broken, incomplete." "Yes, Kestra," said simply, "and that makes me unpredictable." She could have finished him then. A single shot would have breached his life support systems, ending the duel according to the ancient codes. Instead, she held fire. "I offer you a choice, Vextar. Surrender, and live with the knowledge that you were defeated by a broken warrior. Continue, and die for the pride of commanders who sent you to clean up their failures. There's no choice for a true warrior." His interceptor's emergency thrusters fired, pushing the damaged ship into a final attack run. Weapons blazing, he charged directly at Kestra's position, a suicide run that would take them both if it connected. For a moment, Joran thought she would simply accept the death. It would have been the Zilani way, honorable, mutual destruction rather than shameful survival. But at the last second, Kestra's ship twisted aside with inhuman precision, her mechanical legs allowing her to tolerate G-forces that would have killed an augmented pilot. Vextar's ship flashed past, its weapons fire missing by mere meters. Without its primary engine, the interceptor couldn't correct its trajectory. It tumbled away into the darkness, its pilot's frustrated curses echoing over the cum until distance swallowed the signal. The remaining two interceptors held their positions, their crews apparently unsure how to respond to this unprecedented outcome. The ancient code spoke of death or surrender. They had no provision for an opponent simply ... leaving. Kestra's ship returned to the wandering echo, docking with practiced efficiency. When she emerged from the airlock, her silver eyes were bright with something Joran had never seen before: satisfaction. Not the grim acceptance she'd shown during her recovery, but genuine pride in her accomplishment. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Different." She moved toward the bridge with smooth, confident strides. Her prosthetic legs carried her with mechanical precision, but somehow she made the artificial limbs look natural. "I am no longer Zilani, but I am also not human. I am something new. And what is that exactly?" She smiled, the first genuinely happy expression he'd seen from her. "Free." The interceptors were moving away, their formation broken. Over the cum came a final transmission in formal Zilani. "The codes are satisfied. The matter is closed." As the ships vanished into hyperspace, Kestra sat beside Joran on the bridge. Together they watched the stars' wheels slowly past, the vast emptiness no longer feeling like isolation but like possibility. "So what now?" Joran asked. "Now we decide what to do with this freedom." She gestured to the star charts displayed on the navigation console. "There are others like me. Warriors discarded by their own people. Soldiers abandoned by the causes they served. Perhaps it is time someone offered them a different choice. Joran studied her profile, noting the determination in her expression. You want to help them? I want to show them what I learned from you. That honor is not about following orders or fulfilling predetermined roles. It is about choosing to act according to your own principles, regardless of what others expect. That sounds like the start of something big. Kestra nodded, her mechanical fingers dancing across the control panels with growing confidence. Something revolutionary. As the wandering echo changed course toward the Outer Rim systems, where wars left their casualties scattered like debris across forgotten worlds, Joran realized that their story was just beginning. They had both been discarded by the organizations. They served, marked as failures by those who valued conformity over conscience. But sometimes, he reflected, the best salvage came from the pieces others threw away.